Everybody. Welcome, everyone. I'm super excited to be back and to be delivering another resilience building workshop today for you. And for those of you who have attended in the past, I have made some changes and updates, so it won't be all the same material. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat. We'll have time at the end. There we go. So congratulations on being here. I know it's been a really tough year for all of us, with the pandemic. It's frayed our ability to cope with stress, and especially the length of the pandemic, the extended length of it has been really taxing on all of us. So I'm really happy that you're here and you're taking that step to build a happier and healthier life. This workshop is going to provide you with some foundational tools so that you can build long-term resilience. You're going to learn a lot today. So I definitely don't want to overwhelm you with it. I encourage you to try anything that resonates with you. I'm going to be sharing the presentation in a PDF form in the chat after the presentation, after this portion of the presentation. If I forget, Monica, Megan, please remind me, and I will do that. But I want to emphasize to you there, if you're feeling really fatigued right now, due to COVID, academic expectations, professional expectations, relationships, personal challenges, I would really encourage you to begin with these two particular takeaways. And that is that sleep is essential. And I've added a portion about sleep to this presentation. So we are going to discuss sleep. It's critical to your well-being. So I would suggest beginning there and also practice setting boundaries. And we're going to explore that in different various scenarios to do so as well. And just a reminder, be kind to yourself. It took me years to develop these habits and lots of trial and error. So take it one step at a time, see if something resonates with you today. If you're in that place where you really need to start something now, start with your sleep, and then you can build from there. Okay, so this is an interactive workshop, and I totally recognize that the topics that we are discussing today or addressing are sensitive. So I respect your privacy, and I have brought my journal that I'm going to participate as well. And I'd like to encourage you, if you have a piece of paper nearby or your phone, because we always have them, right? And you want to just open up a document on your computer or a fresh page in your journal, a notes app in your phone, or send an email to yourself, however you want to record your responses today. I really encourage you to participate on your own and to do the exercises and save them for reflection later. So our first activity is going to be, how do you define success? So I'd like you to consider 2 or 3 words that come to mind for you, or even just one that represent success for you in your life. So I'll give you a moment to think of those words. And if you would like, you are certainly welcome to enter into the chat, but it's by no means a requirement. Oh, I see something in the chat. Growth and fulfillment. That's wonderful. Happiness. I love that. Bringing others along for the ride. That's great. Peace of mind. Oh, that's so important. Accepting others. Oh, these are great. Oh, they're so wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and share my list. So my list is being healthy, feeling loved, and being respected. And I love what I saw in the chat, that you're all thinking, intrinsically, which is so critical, because when we get tied up a lot of times in our society, particularly Western culture, success is defined by our society as material goods often, get that degree so you can get that awesome job and you can make a lot of money and you can buy the big house and you can have the fancy car. That will make you happy. That's not the case. Happiness comes from within. And we are responsible for doing that. And I'm by no means suggesting that we shouldn't be chasing those goals, because that's great. And we should be enjoying our life and doing our best and, getting those degrees and being successful in that sense professionally and sharing our gifts with the world. But ultimately, our happiness is internal and it's something that we find within ourselves. So leading up to that, who's going to be responsible for providing you with these things? The answer is you. You are, right? You're responsible for your own happiness. Now, I certainly acknowledge and recognize that outside external forces can certainly affect how we feel, and they can certainly cause unhappiness in our lives. And so we're going to explore these 3 different ways: self-love, perspective, and building into resilience, to work against those forces, to protect ourselves from those challenges that disrupt our happiness and our inner well-being. So I'm going to begin by using myself as an example here. So here's just a slide about what you see when you look at someone, right? Particularly if we're using social media, right? So we see the person, we see what they want us to see. We see their accomplishments. We see pictures from their vacations. We see all the cool things that they want to let us know about. So here's, my slide. That's the outer image that they are sharing with you. And that's all valid. But each of us, as you all know, we have our own inner world. And we have our own inner challenges. And I like to call them behind the scenes. So this is the stage, right? What you're seeing right now, I'm showing you my stage. I'm not showing you the behind the scenes though, right? And we often don't. And that's fine because we're entitled to our privacy. But I really want to share with you what my challenges have been and how I've navigated some of them so that you can hopefully see if any of these strategies resonate with you, and also to share that you're not alone if you are experiencing similar challenges. So here's my behind the scenes: pregnancy loss, divorced, mental health issues. So, these are challenges that I've navigated, throughout my life. And I really want to emphasize to you that these challenges don't define you. They are opportunities to grow and gain new strengths. So how do you do that? How do you go from this huge life challenge or a mental health problem and use it in a way that you can pivot into a growth mindset and actually develop some new skills from it? So we're going to explore that. I'm going to begin with self-love. So again, we're going to do 3 areas today: self-love, perspective, and resilience. Self-love. First step toward building self-love, in my opinion and experience, is to heal your trauma. And most people, I believe, experience trauma in their lives. I think we can all agree that COVID has been traumatic for us as individuals, as a nation, and globally. So we all experience at times in our lives traumatic situations. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and it doesn't define you. And I would argue that you have the power to heal and grow from that. And we're going to talk about how you can do that. And I'm just going to share a little bit more, about my own experience with healing from trauma, because I think it could resonate with some people here in the audience. So when I was in graduate school, I experienced pregnancy loss. And that was a huge surprise to me because I was very young and it was devastating. And I developed coping skills that were not healthy at the time, and I did not realize it. And I did go through the motions of grief counseling, and I did that for a couple of months, and I seemed to be so together. I was still finishing my doctorate. I was working full time. I was doing everything. I seemed really happy. And what I realize now is that I had suppressed that trauma and dealing with it. And it ended up triggering later on in my life and, led to some mental health problems. And one mental health problem that I want to, kind of discuss briefly is obsessive compulsive disorder, because it looks sometimes, depending on how it's presenting, for me, it presented in over-exercising, dieting, and cleaning too much obsessively. So for me, on the outside, when I was using that as a really unhealthy coping strategy, it looked fine to everyone else because I had just had a baby and I triggered postpartum OCD, and my house was spotless. I was in the best shape of my life. I was eating super healthy. So people looked at that and nobody saw an issue with that. If you didn't live with me, you didn't see I was up till 1 a.m. cleaning my kitchen. And that's not healthy. So, eventually I became, emaciated, and I needed to get medical attention for that. I'm sharing that because I want you to understand that, even if you feel like, oh, I'm in a good spot and, I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing, I'm coping well, really examine that, and try to understand, have I really processed this? Because this quote here really emphasizes that, explains it very well, how you kind of just get frozen. Those emotions get frozen and they will trigger later on in your life. So I'd encourage you to really take this seriously. And if you've experienced trauma, to really try and work through that as much as you can emotionally. And it may be a long process, and that's okay, but start that process. Okay, so I talked a lot about healing. How do we do that? What does it mean? Okay, so healing is an unlearning of patterns. Remember I talked about we developed some patterns. So for me, that was kind of the OCD stuff that was super unhealthy, but looked great to everyone else. I needed to unlearn that because I was avoiding the anxiety that I was feeling about being a new mom and having lost my first child. So there was a lot that needed to be resolved there. So therapy is a great starting point. So therapy, I think, is probably one of the best things that we can do for ourselves, getting professional help. And if you have, if you're starting this out and you are going to see a therapist and you don't click, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you if that therapist is not effective for you. Go and find someone else. I mean, we don't click with everyone in our personal and professional lives too, right? So it's totally okay to see a couple of different therapists and see which one is best for you. Talk to a trusted loved one. Get support from your family and friends. They love you and they want to be there for you. Be honest and open. Join a support group. So support groups are great. You could do it online. It can be as anonymous as you want or as interactive as you want. So those are some options for you as well. Journaling. Journaling is so awesome. I've got my journal here and it says, choose mindfulness. So it's a nice reminder. I've got my fun journal and my fun pen, which encourage me to use it. And they're both gifts from people who I care for very much. So it's a nice reminder. And an encouragement to journal. Although I will admit, for me, journaling is hit or miss. I have to really be in the mood for it or have something I'm trying to get out of my mind or work through. And I do use a journaling app because I definitely don't have this on me all the time. And it's faster to type. So there's some links there for you for journaling apps if you want to check those out. Okay, so heal your trauma. That's the first step with self-love. The next one is setting boundaries. And I mentioned that this one is really important because, I mean, they're all important, of course, but this helps you to free up your time and to protect that time for yourself, which is very important for maintaining your wellness. So now we're going to move into another interactive part of this workshop. And I would like to ask you again, do it on your own, pull up your journal, phone, whatever. Write down 2 requirements in your life that are stressors, school, work, all of that. Those are valid, and 2 non-requirements that are sources of stress. So maybe you have, you volunteer your time doing a lot of different things. And one of those things is just starting to drain you, or you have a relationship that is not a critical one and it's draining you. Go ahead, I'll give you a moment to write that down. So before we proceed with trying to set some boundaries for those stressors, I just want to also emphasize that you can't eliminate all drains and stressors from your life. It's just the human experience involves growth, and growth often comes out of challenges, right? So while you can't get rid of everything, you can certainly prioritize and ensure that you're not overwhelmed with too many stressors that are unnecessary. Okay, some tips for setting boundaries. The first thing I would recommend would be to prioritize. So what has to get done today? What absolutely has to get done today, and what can wait? This is really hard. I know it sounds easy, but it's really, really hard. And especially when we're working in groups and on teams, and we don't see all of the wheels that are in motion behind the scenes. So one strategy that I use at work is whenever I get an assignment, I generally ask my boss, what is the priority? What's your expectation? What's the timeline? Here's my list of projects I'm currently working on. Where does this fall? Is it at the top? Is it in the middle? Is it something that can be pushed off for a couple weeks? Sometimes the answers will surprise you, right? So work with the people on your team, work with your lab mates, work with your professor, work with your coworkers, work with your boss to figure out what the priorities are. It'll really help save you a lot of time and stress down the road. Examine your feelings. Do any of these non-requirements drain you? If so, why do you continue to prioritize them? And oftentimes, people, especially giving people, will say, well, I don't want to disappoint the other people on this project or in this group by not participating. And that's lovely, but you also shouldn't be putting yourself in a position where you're disappointing yourself and you're stressing yourself out by doing something that's not sparking joy and is not working for you anymore. And so we're going to explore some ways to practice saying no so that you can define those boundaries and maybe still meet some expectations while passing on some others. I'll encourage you to start small. Set one small boundary in the next week if you can. So look at that non-requirement that you wrote down and think about how you might be able to set a boundary with that so that you can free up some time for yourself. Saying no. You can be really direct, right? You can be like Grumpy Cat and you can just say no. And sometimes that's appropriate. But oftentimes, especially if we don't want to, make anyone feel bad or we're trying to preserve some relationships, we might want to try a different approach. So I have some examples here. And again, I'm going to share this in the chat with you later. I want to make sure that there's time for questions at the end. So we're not going to dive into all of these, but you will have a copy of this that you can work from. Just some different strategies for, extracting yourself if you need to or limiting your involvement. And there's also a slide on loved ones. Just a word on loved ones. Your family and friends, they love you and they want to support you. So I really suggest being direct and honest with them about what you are experiencing, what your challenges are, and what you need to heal and grow, even if that is space from them, so that you can be the best version of yourself when you do see them. So I've got some examples there. And at the bottom, there's an example of, sort of a toxic relative situation, which can be very dicey. If anyone has a situation that they ever want to run through, you're more than welcome to contact me. I'm happy to discuss it with you. My contact info is going to be at the end. All right, some boundaries. Encouragement from Oprah. Everyone gets a boundary. All right, so self-love. We've gotten through the first two parts of that, healing your trauma and setting boundaries. The next is practicing self-care. And self-care, I think, is often, there's a misconception that self-care is face masks and bubble baths, fun. And that is great. And the sentiment is there. The sentiment is taking care of yourself. But self-care is more than, those particular things, that sort of luxurious form of self-care. Self-care is developing a set of healthy habits that work best for you. My self-routine care is not going to be the same as your self-routine or self-care routine, excuse me. Everyone's self-care routine is going to be different because we're all different people and we all have different needs and interests. So I've got a list here of some ideas, some basic starting points, and for you to consider, and then also think about what works best for you. So some basic things, eating healthy. You know, your body's the only body that you have for this life. You want to take care of it so it can take care of you. And that doesn't mean, oh, you have to be a super healthy, low calorie vegan diet to be healthy. Everyone has different bodies and different nutritional needs. So whatever healthy looks like for you. Exercise. Exercise is really important. What does that look like for you? It doesn't have to be a 5-mile run every morning. It can be dancing in your room, listening to music, and maybe doing a little stretching after that. It can be going for walks during your break at work when you have time and it's the only time you can squeeze in. That's fine. Whatever works best for you. You don't have to hold yourself to some unrealistic standard that someone else set. Rest. Rest is super important. I know that we have so many expectations. If you're a student or you're a professional, there's this expectation we're going to get everything done and all the time, and it's very unrealistic. And often that's at the expense of our health and resting and getting enough sleep. And we can drink coffee and we can have energy drinks and all of these things to keep us up, right? And as someone who developed a dependency on caffeine when I was going through my mental health struggles, I will say it is not worth it. Having to then detox from the caffeine dependency and then address my actual issues was really challenging, and it really made things a lot more complicated. So please do yourself a favor, just try to limit the caffeine intake and rest when you need to. You know, if that means taking a nap in your car or going home early because you are just spent, then that's okay. You know, if that's becoming a habit, then you really need to examine what your sleep cycle is looking like. And we'll talk about that as well. But please rest, be kind to yourself. Don't poison your body by, over caffeinating or taking things that are going to keep you up and be the opposite of healthy for you. Blank space, going offline. We are as a culture just plugged in all the time. Like we're plugged in right now, right? We're on this meeting. And I've got my phone here and there's music playing sometimes, there's constant influx of sensory information that we're receiving from screens. And that is not healthy for us all the time. So you need to try to take a step back, give your brain a break, because we're processing everything that's coming in, whether that's conscious or not. So try to take a step back. And if you can only do it one time, do it before bed. Try to do it 10 minutes before bed and eliminate the screen time. Make that commitment. I'm going to look at everything I need to, check my email, text my friends, go on social media, set an alarm, and then I'm going to be done with it. 10 minutes before bed, I'm going to wash my face or take a shower, whatever my nighttime routine is. And I've got a list of things here. If, you feel that you need to be doing something during that downtime, that's perfectly fine. Here are some ideas. Okay. Laughing. Laughing is an instant boost, whatever that it, makes you laugh, checking out memes, looking at stand-up, funny videos online, talking to a friend, make time to laugh. That's an instant booster. Take time to do the things that rejuvenate you. You know what they are. They're different for you than they are for me. And don't judge yourself for them. If you want to play video games, play video games. It's all about balance. If you want to eat, the other day, my self-care was eating ice cream and watching some stand-up comedy. And that was great. That's what I needed. So whatever works for you, but make sure it's balanced. I think that's really the key here. And minimize unnecessary drains, coming back to checking in with ourselves emotionally about these activities we're doing. One easy way to decipher that is, does it spark joy? If it doesn't, why are you prioritizing it if it's not a requirement? Have you lost your joy for it? Do you need to limit your time or extract yourself from it? And I've got some tips here about mood tracking apps. These can be used if you're sort of still working on developing that level of self-awareness where you're like, yeah, I'm stressed, but I don't know exactly what my triggers are. You can start using a mood tracking app to see like, oh, wow, I'm like way more anxious before this meeting that I have every week. And then I'm depressed after it. Okay, that's a problem. So I'm going to start doing some self-care before and after to mitigate that trigger of stress. Sleep. So as I've already emphasized so much, sleep is super important. I think it is critical. I think it's the foundation for our wellness. I know I'm grumpy cat when I don't get enough sleep. And worse than that, I end up with, issues, physical issues, from sleep deprivation or poor sleep. So here's some tips. These are really basic sleep tips. Everyone is unique. You may have something that works better for you. By all means, if you have tips that you want to share, please put them in the chat. But here's just some basic guidelines. You want to have a sleep schedule and a routine. Try to go to bed and wake up around the same time every day if you can. If you don't work out, start working out. If you do work out, try to increase the intensity of your workouts a little bit. That could be helpful in getting you a bit more tired and sleeping through the night a bit better. And a word about working out, my psychologist told me that exercise has been shown in studies to provide the same benefits as antidepressants. So I'm by no means saying don't take an antidepressant if you need one, but it is something that can be a part of your toolbox for battling depression. So consider that as well. Meditation, I will admit I have been struggling with my sleep the past few weeks. And one thing that I've been doing is I pop in my headphones and I listen to a sleep hypnosis meditation and fall asleep to that. And subconsciously, I'm meditating, and taking that all in, which is fantastic. And I'm also sleeping better. And then if I wake up in the middle of the night, pop them back in, listen again. So that's an idea. Caffeine, please try to eliminate it 8 hours before bed. If you consume alcohol, eliminating that 4 hours before bed. And if you are trying, you're really trying to get this routine and it's after, a couple of weeks, you're not seeing any improvement and your sleep is still problematic, please seek medical attention. I know so many adults who have just accepted that they don't sleep well and they do nothing about it. And I have a family member, it's like a badge of honor. It's like, oh, I don't sleep. Yes, you do. I see you falling asleep at family events all the time. Like you're not getting enough sleep. So, and then there's this misconception, oh, as you age, you don't need as much. That's not true. Studies show that's not true. You need the same amount of sleep your whole life. So if you are having problems with sleep, it can lead to issues, physical health issues. So please address it. You're worth it. You don't want to go through life a zombie. You deserve better than that. So if you have something going on, please address it. And then if you're waking up in the middle of the night, like me, occasionally this happens to me where I wake up just panicked and I have like this ball of anxiety in my chest. That's anxiety. And I have some tips for you to address that if in the moment, in the middle of the night. So sometimes it's because I'm thinking about something and I will just open my phone and I will address it immediately. I will set a reminder that, okay, I'll email myself at work. Don't forget to do this when you get in. So I know when I get in, when I see that, I'm going to do it. So I don't have to think about it anymore. If I'm thinking of things I need to do, I'll make that quick list. Okay, it's out of my brain now. Meditation, I already mentioned, I'll do that in the middle of the night. This here is like a little herbal thing. It's $8. I got it on Etsy and you rub it on your feet. I don't know how it works, but it works great. So, explore those things like herbal remedies or essential oils, weighted blankets, eye covers, headphones, or earplugs. Those can all be beneficial to you and you're totally worth the investment. Ultimately, if you are having this experience, it's a symptom of anxiety. So you really need to treat that root cause of your anxiety for long-term solution. So I'm in my third wellness program of the year. That's where I invest my money. in myself. I don't go to the spa. I don't get my hair done professionally. For me, I'd rather spend it there because that's where I really need it right now. So I would encourage you to really prioritize yourself in that way, because you will see a big difference for yourself. If you do a wellness program or you get that fancy eye cover thing, it's going to help you sleep. You're worth it. All right, so that wraps up self-love. And now we're going to move into perspective. And I'm going to share a tweet here that I think we can all relate to. Doing a PhD, whether you're a PhD student or not, anyone in STEM, I'm sure, can relate to this, or any high achiever, is a weird time because most people in your life think you're an overachiever, but you feel like a complete imposter who is getting nowhere. I've definitely felt that way, and I can relate to that. So I just want to quickly, address social media, because I think that that's where a lot of this can come from, is that, we see on social media all these beautiful pictures of our friends and family and people we admire, and they're going on vacations, they're doing fabulous things professionally, they're doing well because they're showing you what they want to show you, right? I would really caution you to try to limit your time on social media, because I do think it can be very toxic. It can be very wonderful, and you can learn about new things and meet new people, and that's so great. But if you're finding that you're doing that internal comparison, I really recommend that you try to limit your time, even if it's just, hey, for an hour a day, I'm not checking for a whole hour, or I'm going to go a whole day or a whole week. I took a whole month off in July, and I decided not to return. I am no longer, on any forms of social media except for LinkedIn, because I find it to be beneficial professionally. And I try to limit the amount of time I spend on there. And I'll admit I struggle with that. I understand how enticing it can be to be scrolling and going through and checking and connecting with people. So if you're doing that, please keep in mind, don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. All right, more interactive stuff. Okay, so let's pull out however you're documenting this, and we're gonna write down one thing that you're grateful for. I'm seeing some cool chat going on. Okay, so now we've got our thing that, oh, excellent. People are entering into the chat. We've got friends, supporting family, my happiness, having a job, whenever I wake up. Those are great things. I love that. When I wake up, I'm grateful for that. I love that. Grateful to have another day, grateful to be here. Awesome. Now, let's think of one thing that you are proud of about yourself. And I really want to emphasize that it needs to be intrinsic, not an accomplishment, not a degree, not, a fancy title or anything like that. What is one thing about you as a human being that you are proud of? Let's see, just wrote mine down. Willingness to meet others, my capacity for understanding and appreciating myself and others, empathy. These are wonderful. And I'm proud of all of you for being here. You all chose to be here to spend an hour of your time on the weekend. I know we're all potentially in different time zones. That's fantastic. You're investing in yourself. You care about yourself. You know that you're worth it. And that's wonderful. So save this. Save it and refer back to it whenever you might need it. And if you want to take it a step further, you can make it a habit. Can you do this once a week? After a few weeks, you're going to have a really nice list for yourself. And you can ask trusted loved ones to contribute to it as well. Some reminders. What are they proud of about you? Not an accomplishment, right? Okay. We've got another activity for us. Go ahead and make a list of all of your responsibilities. So work, school, your home. You are responsible for caring for the place you live. You are responsible for feeding yourself, planning meals, groceries, cooking. Even if you're just ordering takeout, that's a responsibility. You have to do it, right? Bills you have to pay. Go ahead and make that list. And then also make a list of your relationships. So you could have your parents, your siblings, friends, a significant other, children, if you have them, pets, if you have them, professional relationships. Relationships are also responsibilities, and they take time and effort, right? And then also make a list of your challenges. So I shared my list, and I'm really happy to share that they're not all active items that I'm dealing with, but there's still a couple there that I'm working through. So make a list of your challenges, including past challenges. Do you have trauma that you're working through? Even if it happened a long time ago, but it's still something you're working through, that's very much an active challenge. Okay, so you've got your list, and I'm sure it's a really long, extensive list. And if you spend more time with this, I'm sure you'll think of even more things, right? I want you to think about, and go ahead, if you've got your phones or you've got pictures on your computer, pull up a picture of somebody you love, someone you love very much, or just think of them, see them in your mind's eye. And I want you to consider if that person who you loved so much, if they had this list, if they had that much on their plate and you were aware of that, how would you treat this person? Would you be hard on them, or would you be kind to them? How would you think of them? If they made a mistake, would you call them stupid? Probably not, right? You'd probably be supportive and loving and understanding. And what would your expectations be of the relationship if they couldn't meet an expectation for you? They couldn't meet you for lunch or something like that. Would you be upset with them? Would you be hard on them about that? Probably not, right? I would like for you to now shift that to yourself. How are you treating yourself? Are you being hard on yourself? Are you being kind and loving and understanding? If you make a mistake, don't call yourself stupid. You're not. You'll fix it. Take a step back if you need to. Be loving and kind and understanding with yourself. Treat yourself with the same compassion that you would treat a loved one. And as with all of these lists that we're making, I encourage you to keep them somewhere that you can refer back to them. I know when I did this exercise, I was shocked. My list was way longer than I thought it was going to be. And it's a good reminder if I'm having a tough time that look at everything that I'm doing. And I can't do everything at the same high level, right? It's about balance and prioritization. Okay, just some final words on perspective. Remain flexible. Attach yourself to goals, not specific outcomes. And I think that a good example of this, about how there's always more than one path, is if you think about it in terms of research. For those of us who have been involved in research or are currently involved in research, have you ever solved a research problem with your first experiment? Not at all, right? It takes a long time. It takes lots of experiments. It takes changing things. It takes trying different approaches, collaborating with people. It takes a huge effort, and it takes a village, right? At times. So I want you to think about, that in your own life. You're getting a degree. That's the goal. You're going to get that. But is it going to look exactly how you planned? Is it going to be the same exact number of semesters? Is it going to be on that schedule that you planned? Maybe not. And I would argue that if you have twists and turns, which we often do, right? It's going to be a very enriching experience for you, because you're going to be learning things you didn't expect and having experiences you didn't plan on. And those experiences are going to be an enriching opportunity. Taking it back to research. If your experiments worked the first time, every time, and you solved the research problem in a day, how much have you learned? How much grit have you developed? How much, resilience, and, have you developed your thought processes? That's all a part of the process, right? That's that enriching opportunity to grow as a person and to develop new ways of thinking and try new approaches. So apply that to your life as well. And I'm just going to share a quote that I got from my dad. He says this to me a lot. Sometimes you will get what you wanted, but in an unexpected package. And I have a really quick story to share where this played out for me last weekend. I shared it with Megan earlier this week about the hike. So I went for a hike last weekend, and I wanted to be healthy and do something fun. I knew I needed to be rejuvenated, and I thought, well, maybe I'll sit on the couch and I'll do that. Just like lay low. I was like, no, it's a beautiful day. Let me go outside. It's gonna be wonderful. Go up this mountain, and it's hot. I'm miserable. I was not having a good time. Get to the top. There's a thing you can climb up. I'm terrified of heights. I'm like, I'm not going up that thing. So I get no view, of the mountain, and I'm exhausted and tired. And I'm like, I'm just going to go back down this mountain. So I'm going down, and as I'm going down, it starts to rain. It wasn't supposed to rain. And I was like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding. It's raining now. And I was like, I better get down this mountain. I'm wearing sneakers. I don't have hiking boots. Like, this is a mess. And as I'm going down, I'm getting, upset about the whole situation. But then I realized I was actually having some fun as I was like hopping from rock to rock and trying to get down there really quickly. And I found that the rain was very refreshing because I was super hot. And I was like, wow, I actually feel good. And I stopped worrying about what I looked like, or that, I was getting mud on my shoes. And I really enjoyed it. And I actually felt rejuvenated, and I got what I needed, just not how I expected. And it was really funny. When I got to the bottom, there was a woman walking a goat, and I had to do a double take. I was like, that dog looks like a goat. It was a goat, and I love goats. So I felt that was an extra little gift from the universe that, hey, I'm laughing here with you kind of thing. So if you approach things with a grateful and open heart, you will have a better experience, and you'll get what you need. Trust your journey and trust the people in your life, because you know how to take this journey, and they will provide you with things that enrich you as well. Putting it all together, resilience. Resilience is our ability to bounce back from these challenges. And I would argue that self-love and perspective and the things that we discussed are ways that you can build resilience. And again, there's no one size fits all. And because of that, I have some resources here that I want to share for determining your personality type, what you can do with that information, determining your love language, because, ultimately, it's your responsibility to make yourself feel loved, to love yourself, right? Outside relationships can certainly supplement that, but you should not be seeking external validation for things that should be provided to you from within. So find out your love language and then treat yourself that way. Consider where you and your loved ones are developmentally. This is I encourage you to look at this link. It's really cool, and it really changed how I viewed a lot of my relationships and shifted my perspective. Cultivating self-worth and how it differs from self-esteem. That this is a TED Talk by a clinical psychologist who really eloquently explains it. So think about this is customizable. I just shared some things that work for me, but do the work and figure out what works best for you too. One final exercise, and we're gonna do this quickly because I want time for questions. Pull up a photo of someone you love. Remember, we talked about that before, or envision them in your mind's eye, but a photo is even better. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that as well. I'm gonna do it with you. So pull up a photo of someone you love. And while looking at the photo, think about the things that you love about this person. What are some things that you love about them? It probably feels good to think of that, right? And send them some love from your heart. I'll show you my picture. I got my son up. And now pull up a photo of yourself, or put your phone in camera mode. Think about all of the things that you love about yourself and that you're proud of, and pull up that list if you need it. Send yourself some love. Try to do this twice a day, morning and night, for 10 to 15 seconds each day or each time. It's a really short commitment. It's a great way to start your day, and it's a great way to end your day with sending love to yourself. Thank you so much for your attention. I've got, I'm going to share that this presentation with you in the chat, and I'm happy to take any questions.